set of relationships. So those aren't my permanent relationships, but they do give us an inkling of our permanent relationship. That is that we have one. We have a relationship with Krishna and with Krishna's devotees. And what this song is describing is the kinds of relationships that Krishna has in the spiritual world. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari means Krishna is Radha and Krishna. They're always together as lovers. And where are they? Kunja Bihari. They're taking pleasure in the spiritual world in that relationship. In fact, everyone's observing them serving that relationship between Radha and Krishna. They're the center of attention. And then Gopijana Ballabha, Girivaridhari. These are all names of Krishna. There's the Gopijana, and the groups of gopis who are, they're in this mood of lovers, but they serve very intensely. And Girivaridhari, the name of Krishna, he lifts Govardhan Hill with his little finger, and at that time he gives everyone a chance to come under the hill, and he relates with all the devotees in Vrindavan, his hometown, all at the same time, because he holds the hill aloft for 7 days, like that. And then Yashoda Nandana is about the parental relationship, Vrajajana Ranjana. These are all the residents, the Vrajajanas, the residents of Raj. Jamuna Tira Varachari, like the Jamuna, all the natural phenomena that we see in Vrindavan is actually personified. So Jamuna is the river, but is also a personality who's worshiping Krishna. So we get this sense it's a window to the spiritual world. It's a very esoteric song. And Prabhupada used to sing it before he would teach the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we're about to do. So in the process of devotional service, we follow the same kinds of processes that are handed down to us by the previous acharyas. Acharya really means one who teaches by example. The achar means one's behavior. So acharya means somebody who's teaching by example. And Prabhupada set a simple program for us. So if you go to an ISKCON temple anywhere in the world, you'll find that devotees will sit down and then they'll sing this song, you'll notice, because Prabhupada did it. So we just follow what he did. And then we discuss the Srimad Bhagavatam. So let's sing the song together. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Jaya Girivaridhari Gopi Jana Ballabha Jaya Girivaridhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janarandana Jamuna Tiravan Jamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So that was an invocation. So we find that in Vaishnava classes, in writings, there's an invocation. You don't just jump right into it, but you first approach, as we were just talking about with the bhajans, that we're approaching in a humble way and honoring the Supreme as we're going in. So Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This way we're addressing the Lord who's all-pervading. He's situated within everyone's heart. Worshiping Him, honoring, acknowledging His presence. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The next is a specific verse that is often recited before we talk about Srimad Bhagavatam. And it goes like this. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasatim vyasam tato jayam udiraye. So this is offering respects to the author of Srila Vyasadeva. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva, and Nar and Narayana, Rishi, the Supreme Personality of God, the goddess Saraswati. And it says, Tato Jayam Udiraya, that this is our means of conquest. Interesting way to put it. What is the problem? I'm being defeated by my own foolishness, by trying to be something I'm not here in this material world. And it's hard to get out of. So how does one rise above that? How does one become victorious in this world? Actually, even people who are very successful in this life, you may make goals and be organized and be really smart and go to all the right schools. But then in the end, it all gets dashed, which is quite disappointing, actually, because it seems as if, whatever progress you make, you should be able to keep. But the most you can say is, we had a good run. That's what my parents said. We had a good run at it. I saw when they were leaving the world. I said, well, we had a good run at it, which they did. I mean, they really did a lot of stuff. But I saw, now it's all lost, and it all just gets reshuffled. So, Tato Jayam Udirayat, what is our actual victory as a soul? It's to take full advantage of Krishna's mercy and to rise to our true position as spiritual beings and to be reinstated in some service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how will that be done? Tato Jayam Udirayat, through this medium of hearing. Shravanam is the first process of bhakti, just to hear, submissively listen to topics about Krishna and the instructions Krishna has given, or the instructions that Krishna's devotees have given after hearing about him. Sounds like a police radio back there. Maybe we're tracking some criminals somewhere. So that after doing that, as if that wasn't enough, did we catch him? Then there are some prayers that we offer, we say before entering into a discussion. So you'll find this is very common. And one of the first prayers that we say, it's in Sanskrit, it goes like this. Oma jnana timirandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurun midatamdina tasmai shri gurave namaha. Means I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, who has opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance with the torchlight of knowledge. So there's this sense of gratitude when we enter into a spiritual discussion. It's like, no, I know so much. No, I'm only saying what I heard from my guru who opened my eyes. And And that's the mood of the devotee. Always very humble and feeling, as we discussed earlier, humble, bereft. I'm only an instrument. But my guru, who is a servant of his guru, a servant of guru goes all the way back to Krishna, just passing down what I've learned, and I've been given some help, some enlightenment, so I'm now offering that. That's the system of Guru Parampara. So devotees, you'll find they say this prayer before going into the subject matter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so let's just say it together. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Vinatam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And now, as I had begun this morning in the Japa circle, speaking about the verse Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna, if I could have a first canto, I'll be ever grateful. And even before the verse we discussed, and actually, if we look at the verses in this section of the Bhagavatam, 1, 2, 16 and onward, we'll find it's not just one verse, but it's actually a paragraph. And when Prabhupada quotes this in various places, he quotes it in toto. And so the succession of verses is important to understanding the practice of devotional service. So, the practice of devotional service, what is devotional service, is given a definition by Srila Rupa Goswami in his seminal book called the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which was translated by Srila Prabhupada as a summary of the book, as it's a vast book. It's called the Nectar of Devotion. So there's Nectar of Instruction and there's Nectar of Devotion. So Nectar of Devotion is a summary study of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which means the ocean of Bhakti Rasa. So it's an ocean and it's divided into 4 divisions. And each one of the sections of the ocean has various waves. So he gives this metaphor, and that's how he divides up his book. In the very beginning of the book, Srila Rupa Goswami gives 2 verses that are very important for understanding what is devotional service and what should I be doing to advance in devotional service. And the first verse goes like this: Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmanyanavritam anukulyena krishnanu shilaram bhaktir uttama. And this means that one should have full dependence on the process of bhakti, which means service to Krishna. And also, one should have a favorable attitude while performing this service. One should also cultivate it. Means that there are 2 types of cultivation. One type of cultivation is with one's external senses, and the other is an internal cultivation, the way one thinks and remembers things, not things, but Krishna. And it means that we have to actually do something. It's not inactive meditation, but there is a way in which we stay engaged. We use our senses in various ways. And we think of Krishna in a favorable attitude. And the reason that's mentioned is because there are those who think of Krishna but not in a favorable attitude. They're thinking like Kamsa does. For those who have read Prabhupada's book called Krishna Book, there's a section describing how Kamsa was a king and he was averse to Krishna. In fact, he was afraid of him and he wanted to kill him. And that's why he was thinking about him all the time. It's like, I want to kill him. So because Krishna is all purifying, no matter which way you think of him, you get some purification. That's not bhakti or devotional service, thinking how to kill Krishna. Although it may be beneficial because you're thinking of Krishna at least. Bhakti is different. It means to think favorably. How can I serve Krishna? How can I appreciate and praise him and so forth? And there are 9 processes for doing this that are mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami in his book. And it starts, as I just mentioned a moment before, with hearing. So hearing is a process that is cleansing to the heart and mind. And the progression of verses that we can look at today begins with Shushu Shoshadhanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahat Seveya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevana. Actually, go back one more. So, if we look at the synonyms of this verse as Yat Anudya Asina. So it's a metaphor that remembrance of Krishna is like a sword. And what's the sword going to do? It's going to cut something. We're yukta. We get equipped with that sword by performing bhakti, right? And so what is the sword going to cut? It's called the karma granthi. It's the knot of karma. So karma, somehow or other, when I'm engaged somehow or other, I am engaged in material life and association. I just found myself here suddenly. And I'm entangled. And I feel compelled to act in certain ways. I'm born with predispositions. I'm as a cat or a dog. Like cats are very predisposed to being cats. If you talk to a cat, which you can do, they'll listen to some degree. And you say, "Kitty, could you be more like a dog?" Then the cat will look at you and like curl up in a ball and go, "Not right now." And a dog, if you ask it to be more like a cat, will look at you like, "What are you talking about? I'm a dog." Human beings also have predispositions, and in a general sense, they're determined by the various modalities that we've come in contact with in this world. Krishna explains this in the Bhagavad Gita. He said, how do you get various types of bodies that are predisposed towards certain kinds of activities? Purusha prakritisto hi. This is 1322. Purusha prakritisto hi bhunkte prakriti jangunan karanam guna sangosya sarasad yoni janmasu. The cause of my getting various kinds of bodies with various types of predispositions is because of my previous associations with the modes of nature. I acquire the modes and they go into the heart and they determine my type of consciousness as cat, dog, etc. And the body, the external body, is only an accommodation for my consciousness. And that's proved in the Bhagavad Gita also when Krishna says, Yang yang vapi smaran bhavam tajat yante kalevaram tam tame vaite konteya sadatat bhava bhavita. Whatever your predisposition is, when you leave this present body, that will carry over to your next body, and material nature will accommodate you with a body that befits your particular mentality, so you can continue it. It's accommodating. And so it's not a punishment, although if I feel inconvenienced by it, I may claim that I'm being punished, but the Bhagavad Gita continually points us in the direction of our own activities and says, be aware of the fact nakartritvam nakarmani lokasya srijati prabhu, that the Supreme isn't doing this to you, you're doing it to yourself. So reform. And once you reform, which means to refine oneself, rise above the lower modalities in nature and come to this purified state, which is called sattva. We call it Shuddha Sattva in its very pure state, because regular Sattva means it's still mixed with something here in the material world, and I still have some proclivity for an attachment to the material world. So the karma knot is something we're born with, karmic knot. And this claims, the Bhagavatam's claiming here, Sutta Goswami speaking this right now, this verse, to a group of sages, just like all of you. You're all sages, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And he's saying to them, here's the process, because they really wanted to know from him. He was a representative that had been thoroughly vetted. In fact, his father had been the one who had started the seminar, but he blew it in a big way by not recognizing Krishna in the form of Balaram when he came there to the seminar. He just sat there. He didn't stand up and say, "Hey, Krishna just came here." And so he was replaced with his son, who was highly learned. He became highly learned because he had gone through the process that I mentioned before of listening to his gurus. Vetatam saumya tat sarvam tatvatas tadanugrahat bruyu snigdasya sishyasya guravo kuhyamapyuta. He knows all the secrets, said Sutta Goswami, or said the sages, that he knows everything because he was so submissive to his gurus. He listened for a long time. He listened to it all very carefully. That's an indication of how one actually becomes advanced in devotional service. And what was his mood? Saumya. He was very gentle in nature. Gentle means that he was careful the way he dealt with others. He didn't exhibit arrogance and so forth. You can ask a question? Oh, I thought you had it. And so he became highly qualified. And it's amazing how much you can learn if you just listen submissively. That's part of the benediction of getting a human body. That you can listen, and if you listen carefully with an open mind, then although you may think like this is a really exalted or even complicated subject matter, but just keep listening. And eventually it all enters the ear, and it's not exactly our intelligence that makes it possible for us to understand. In a way it is, but it's Krishna helping us from within the heart to understand everything. He informs us from within. So this speaker who's speaking the verses we're about to hear today had learned it from his various gurus. There are different kinds of gurus. There's a guru who first introduces one to the process of Krishna consciousness. This is called the Vartmana Pradakshaka Guru. Like, it could be anybody, and it's Krishna's arrangement, not usually. It's always Krishna's arrangement that somebody comes along and says, "Hey, have you heard of this before? And why don't you check this out?" And then when you start to look at it and you think, wow, that's kind of calling to me. And then the person who gave you that first opportunity, that showed you the path in the first place, that's called the Vartmana Pradakshaka Guru, the first guru, who shows you the path. And then after that, there are gurus called Shiksha. Shiksha means ones who teach you different things. There's things to learn about devotional service, how to associate with devotees, how to do the process of devotional service, as we're speaking right now. And this is called Shiksha. And you learn from these Shiksha gurus. There can be more than one. And then there's a Diksha guru. A Diksha guru is somebody who gives you the mantras to chant. And it says, practice these mantras, and they hand over the mantras to you directly, which has great potency when you get it from a devotee. So he, Sutta Goswami, the speaker of today's verses, had gone through this whole process and pleased his different gurus by being very submissive, serving them and so forth, and he listened. And how much did he listen? A lot. Listen a lot. So if you want to get advanced in devotional service, listen. How much? A lot. So, And if you want to get more advancement, then listen more. Hearing is the gateway to understanding everything and to becoming advanced in devotional service. So now he's speaking these verses, and he's talking about how powerful hearing about Krishna is. So yat, which anudya, remembrance, asina. This sword of remembering Krishna is, if you're equipped with that, you can actually cut the knot of karma within your heart by remembering Krishna. That's how powerful it is to remember him. And it's described, that is karma, nibandhanam, it's internet, like, something that's knitted together, like this cloth. You can't tell where one cloth starts and the other one finishes. It's just one thing. And it's all wound up. And so as it's interknit, it's very difficult to just take it apart yourself and unravel the whole situation. If you've ever had a big ball of yarn or twine that got all tangled up, and you're trying to undo it, and you're late for school, and you got to finish it before that, and it's really hard to untangle, sometimes you just have to cut it. That happened to me a couple of times with my shika. I just couldn't get entangled, and I was in a hurry. So it's like, okay, you're coming off. I hate to do it, but I got to go. And so that's why my shika is so short now. Been in a hurry a lot. So there's this sense of like it's so tangled up, it's so intertwined, interknit that you really can't find the beginning or the end or how to untangle yourself. So chindanti, you cut it. Kovida means an intelligent person. Intelligent persons do this. Tasyaka. Now he's asking a question. Who won't then pay attention to this? After you know this, who's not going to listen? It's a rhetorical question where he's saying, like, now that you know the process, like, why won't you do it? And of course, that's answered later in the Bhagavatam. If somebody's really entangled in certain kinds of very low activities, especially killing animals, then it's very difficult for them to understand the importance of this. So killing animals or killing themselves by being fully engaged in material activities. So let's look at the translation. Translation is as follows. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? Let's say it all together. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? And by the way, I'm noticing how everyone's sitting listening, so I deeply appreciate it. Thank you. Purport. The contact of the spiritual spark with material elements creates a knot which must be cut if one wants to be liberated from the actions and reactions of fruitive work. Could somebody else read that first sentence again?
The contact of the spiritual spark with material elements creates a knot.
You get 1% credit without the microphone, 100% with.
The contact of the spiritual spark with material elements creates a knot which must be cut if one wants to be liberated from the actions and reactions of fruitive work.
One more person, please read it.
The same first time?
Yeah.
The contact of the spiritual spark with material elements creates a knot which must be cut if one wants to be liberated from the actions and reactions of fruitive work.
Somebody from this side, read it, please.
The contact of the spiritual spark with material elements creates a knot which must be cut if one wants to be liberated from actions and reactions of fruitive work.
One more.
The contact of the spiritual spark with the material elements creates a knot which must be cut if one wants to be liberated from the actions and reactions of fruitive work.
So this is a very clear statement. We are spiritual sparks. We're in contact with material elements. And that's created a knot. So we have to cut it if we want to be liberated. And the next line says, liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work. Someone else read that second.
Liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work.
Two more.
Liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work.
Una más. Por favor.
Liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work.
Yes, liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work. So I'm caught in reactionary work. In other words, I'm working as an obligation. Did you ever notice that? Do you ever feel obligated to work? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I owe, it's off to work I go. So there's a way in which I'm a debtor in this world. And from the time I'm born, there's an expectation. It's like, come on, Schnicky, learn to walk, because you got to start moving around. Like even in a rural economy, there's ways that the kids, they start chopping wood early, young. It's like work. You do something. We got to feed ourselves. And there's an angst that is inherent in the material experience. I'm already obligated the second I come out of the womb. In fact, my parents, if they have the means, they're already saving up for my college fund. Why? So you can get a good education. Why? Because you're going to work hard after that. That's an obligation. This is reactionary work. You have to do it. And we're caught in this. We're bound up by this. So liberation means that you transfer your propensity to move. It's not just propensity. It's we must move. We're living force. We can't stop. But instead of being obligated, we're moving out of a different sense. We're moving out of service. We're using our senses. And this is the second verse I wanted to mention from Rupa Goswami, from his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He says, Sarvopadi vinir muktam tat pratvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchate. So there's a way in which when you, I think I said uchate in the first verse, but it's uttama, and in the second one is uchate. Correct me if I'm wrong. That this means, the second definition, this is a parallel verse, but it gives a slight nuance to the first one that I mentioned about what is devotional service. So, sarvopadi vinir muktam. There's a way that we, through devotional service, must become free from what's called upadis. Upadis means a false designation. For instance, if I think that I'm an American, that's a temporary designation, because first of all, I could change. I could very easily become, I don't know, from what I heard from a devotee the other day, you could go to Dubai and become a permanent resident there, and then maybe after some years, you become, what would you be if you, a what? Emirati. I could become an Emirati and identify as an Emirati. I could even wear a turban, possibly. Would they let me? Yeah? Okay. I could go around telling everyone, where are you from? I'm an Emirati. And, let's just say you like a particular sports team. You're a big fan of the, Let's pick one I never heard of. Like, I don't know, Liverpool against, who's the one they're against? Manchester. Yeah, so I know nothing about it, so I'm not attached. I have no upadi. Somebody else is, though. Like Manchester's got to win, and my mood is going to rise or fall depending on whether some guy that I've never met kicks a ball into a net. It's going to change everything. So I'm so absorbed in the material world, but I could very easily, people change teams all the time. It's like, what? How come? It's like, well, my guy moved over there, and now he's... So we have all these designations, and what Shukadeva Goswami called is the world of names. We just name things. And this is called this, it's called that, but it's always changing into something else. It's not permanent. So Sarvopati Vinirmukta means that we come to reality, as described in the Bhagavad Gita. Nasato vidite bhavo, and the bhavo vidite sata, ubayora pitishnon tas tvanayos tattvadarshidi. Darshibi means somebody who sees reality. Reality means there's two different energies. One is the permanent energy that always exists. And that's what we're talking about when we speak Krishna Katha. We're talking about Krishna and his internal energy. It's superior energy, and it's permanent, and it's always improving, whereas the material nature is endlessly mutable. It's always degrading and morphing into something else. And he says the one who sees the difference between these two energies is actually a seer of truth. You understand that there's an impure and superior energy, and you don't make the mistake of identifying yourself, who are a part of the superior energy, with the inferior energy, and say, this is me. And that's an upadi. And an example that's given by the great teachers is if you take a clear crystal and then you put a red rose next to it, what color will the crystal become? That is the correct answer. And then if you actually analyze it, however, the crystal's not red, but it's by its association, because of its association with the red rose, it appears to be red. And you say, it's red, but that's an upadi. It's not actually red. So similarly, I'm not actually American, and such and such is not actually a Manchester fanatic, hooligan. These are all temporary designations for the pure soul, here ensconced in matter and identifying with matter. So liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work, and the verse Sarvopati Vinirmuktam describes what it's like. The person becomes free from upadis and sees that actually I'm a spirit soul, a pure spirit soul, and I'm a servant of Krishna. And so, who's Krishna? He's also known as Hrishikesh. Hrishikesh means that he's the one who's the master of my senses. Hrishik Isha means the word becomes Hrishikesh. And so it's not my body I'm in now. If it was, then I would be able to always command it. But sometimes I can't. There's bodily functions, I say, okay, stop. And it's like, no, it's not now. Or like if I wake up one day and my hand, I say, come here, hand, and the hand says, can't, won't, not gonna. It's like, no, please. It's like, nuh-uh, not coming. There's nothing I can do about it because it's not my hand. It's under a higher control. The whole body is like that. And so whose body is it? It belongs to Isha, the Supreme Controller, Krishna. So devotional service means to use the body we have now, for instance, the hand I mentioned, the feet, the eyes, in service to Isha. Then, so he's known as Rishikesh, the master of all the senses. So I serve him with my senses rather than trying to serve my own desires through my senses. That's the process of devotional service. And when I do that, then the senses become purified and I become free from upadis, or designations, thinking I'm this body, I'm these senses, and so forth. Sarvopati, all upadis, all designations. Sarva means all, upadi. The word together, sarvopati. Vinirmuktam, they become removed. Tatpratvena nirmalam, I become completely purified. How? Hrishikena Hrishikesha, by serving the master of the senses. Sevanam bhakti. Through that service, this is called devotional service, and it's purifying process. So devotional service is very pleasing also. It's not that it's an onerous process. It's mentioned, yat pada pankacha palasa vilasya bhaktya karmashrayam gratitam utkartayanti santa tadvanna rikta matayo yatayo pirudha shrotoganas tamaranam bhajavasudevam. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's described how the knot that we're discussing here is cut because it's so beautiful. Aesthetically pleasing. Do you like aesthetically pleasing things, anybody? Or do you like really ugly stuff? Do you like really nice food? Yes. Or do you like just really nasty, terrible smelling stuff? Okay, good. So there's beauty. There's natural beauty, and it all emanates from one source, from Krishna. And in the material world, the beauty we see is a reflection of the original beauty. And when we become accustomed to the beauty and joyfulness of the spiritual world and its energy, how? By hearing about it. Then we naturally become detached from hard work in the material world and the obligation to work here. So that means yat pada pankacha palasa. This means that Krishna is a person. And poetically it's described here how his feet are very beautiful. And that when you start to hear about Krishna and his qualities and his pastimes, yat pada pankacha palasa vilasya bhaktya, there's a vilas, there's a kind of enjoyment that you get from it. And once you get that enjoyment, then that surpasses all the enjoyment of the material world. It's far superior. It's not even close. Karmashrayam gratitan utkartayanti santa, which means that by that enjoyment that you're getting from hearing about Krishna and his pastimes, that the knot in the heart that we're discussing here, it gets cut. Because someone says, hey, you want some of this? And it's like, not really. Like anyone who's, if somebody offered me, or even see somebody like eating some abominable thing, it's not like I think, oh God, I wish I could have some of that. Like when we were downtown for the Black Friday, there was somebody on that near Nordstrom's, some independent vendor. I don't even know if he had a license, but he had some real concoction cooked up there. And I was like, ooh, go around. Because it was, in all ways, really objectionable to my senses. I wasn't attracted at all. That knot had been cut because I've had prasadam. First time I was given a little sweet rice. Come here, kid, try this. See what you think. You sure this is okay to eat this? It's like, they're like, it's not about severe austerities. It's about pleasing Krishna's senses. And he ate this, so now you eat it. See if you like it. And I was like, yeah, I like it a lot. In fact, the next day I drank so much I almost died. So there's a vilas that one gets from bhakti. Like we were talking this morning just about singing these songs. You start to make an association. Like I have all the devotees who have had a time when they're with other devotees, the sun's coming up, they're singing a song or they're chanting, and just for 2 seconds, all of a sudden they feel like, God, this is beautiful. I really like this. This is better than watching TV. And that is an impression that goes deep within the heart and actually severs one's attachment to the mundane activities of the material world. They look objectionable. It's like, no thanks, I'm not interested. I have something sweet, vilas, it's pleasurable, it's happy. So one gets that, and then the knot in the heart, my attachment to all these gross things, it gets cut. And so the verse says, Yat pada pankacha palasa vilasya bhaktya karmashrayam gratitam utkratayanti santa tadvanna rikta matayo. If somebody takes another path, they're rikta matayo, where they don't have this vilas or beauty and sweetness and enjoyment through hearing about Krishna's pastimes, the way he looks, the way the people relate to him, the way they feel separation from him, and the love that the devotees have. If they don't have that, they're rikta matayo means they're empty-headed. Literally, it means empty-headed. Like they don't have any idea about Krishna in their head. So they may sit up straight, and they may like restrain their senses. And they may do it for a long time, maybe 10,000 years, like I'm not going to touch it because I'm not my body. And I'm a spiritual being, but they don't have the vilas. So then the verse goes on, Rikta matayo yatayo pirudha shroto ganas tamaranam bhajavasadeva. Then when a big wave comes, anybody here? Surfers in here? Not many Indian surfers. We used to go Kul and I used to stay on the beach in Puri for a few extra days, and we'd just swim in the ocean. And a big crowd come on the shore, and they come over like, how you do that? It was not a big sport in India, I think, surfing, right? We didn't use a board. We were just body surfing. But even that was something at that time. So when you're out surfing or body surfing, sometimes when you're there and the waves are coming in, everything's fun and games, and then all of a sudden a huge wave comes in out of nowhere and just pounds you. Or it happens along the California coast. I've seen signs of this. When you drive up towards Fort Bragg, Mendocino, they have little warnings because people go, like they have a wedding party and they'll go out there and a little further, right out there on the cliff, and they're standing there, and then what's called sleeper waves come. Sleeper waves, there are these apparently errant waves that come out of apparently nowhere. It's nice and calm down there, and all of a sudden a huge wave comes, and it comes all the way up, and it grabs the people off the cliff and just pulls them in. That's it. Really quick marriage. No time to even return the presents. So that's what happens in the material world. It's all fun and games till somebody gets hurt. And somebody always gets hurt. And a big wave always comes in when you're least expecting it. And that's described here as the senses. They're like that. You think, I am all controlled. But then the sense wave comes and it just drags you away. So it says, the verse says, even great yogis who are fully self-controlled, the big wave of sense gratification comes in and grabs them and pulls them away. No more self-realization for now. You go back and swim in the ocean, try to get out again. But not for the devotees. Because yet pada pankacha palasa vilasya bhakta. There's a vilas, there's an enjoyment they get that is so sublime, it's so rarefied that they're enjoying it so much, it actually cuts that knot, that propensity that I want to enjoy the material world. That's been there for so long that even I try to deny it, then it sneaks up on me again. It keeps coming, that wave keeps coming, pulling me away. But one can overcome it. The liberation comes by positive attachment to hearing about Krishna and his activities, his beauty, his qualities, the way he interacts with his devotees, the relationships, and so forth. Then, when one becomes attached to that, one becomes a free soul. And the upadhis become purified, and I understand my real designation is I'm pure spirit soul, and I'm an eternal servant of Krishna. Then one's living one's free life, actual happy life. So if you'll go back to the verse, then we'll just take a few reflections. The verse at hand was Yad anudyasina yukta karma granti nibandanam jinnanti kovidastasya kona kuryat kataratim. And we're in the purport, partway down, third sentence, which goes like this. This liberation automatically follows for one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead. This is because all the activities of the Supreme Lord, his Leela, which I was just referring to, are transcendental to the modes of material nature. They are all attractive spiritual activities, and therefore constant association with the spiritual activities of the Supreme Lord gradually spiritualizes the conditioned soul and ultimately severs the knot of material bondage. Liberation from material bondage is therefore a byproduct of devotional service. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. Such knowledge must be overcoated with devotional service so that ultimately the devotional service alone predominates. Then liberation is made possible. Even the reactionary work of the fruitive workers can lead one to liberation when it is overcoated with devotional service. Karma overcoated with devotional service is called karma yoga. Is everyone okay still? Am I going too fast? You're fully attentive? Okay. Similarly, empirical knowledge, look up the word empirical, please, in the etymological dictionary. Overcoated with devotional service is called jnana yoga, but pure bhakti yoga is independent of such karma and jnana because it alone can not only endow one with liberation from conditional life, but also award one the transcendental loving service of the Lord. You have to have both. It's not just detachment from the material world by knowing that I'm a spirit soul, but it's also attachment to the transcendental living service of the Lord. Both have to be there. Yene ravindaksha vamuktamaninas tvayastabhavad avashudha puraya aruya krishena paramparam tata patantyato nadrita yushmadangraya. As Bhagavatam states, and you don't have to bring it up, it's just that without the relationship with Krishna, then there's no actual liberation. It's only imagined liberation, because you'll be knocked off from that position. Therefore, any sensible man who is above the average man with a poor fund of knowledge must constantly remember the personality of Godhead by hearing about him, by glorifying him, by remembering him, and by worshiping him always without cessation. That's devotional service. This is the perfect way of devotional service. The Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach the bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule and made immense literatures of transcendental science for our benefit. They have chalked out ways for all classes of men in terms of different castes and orders of life in pursuance of the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and similar other authoritative scriptures. Empiric? Could we have a microphone for the research department, please?
Empirical is originally used in medicine, and it's pertaining to or derived from experience or experiments. It comes from the Latin word empiricus, which is a physician guided by experience, which comes from Greek empirikos, experienced, from empiria, experience, mere experience or practice without knowledge, especially in medicine.
That's interesting. One point refers to a physician. Practical knowledge gained through experience. Okay, now let's see if you have any questions. We just have a little time left. There's an art to asking questions. Yeah, you have one? That's pretty good. Okay, microphone to Mataji all the way in the back.
Maharaj, you mentioned that bhakti has two components, detachment and attachment. Is this akin to liberation that comes from bhakti? I
Yes.
probably didn't catch the two components you were referring to.
Yes, it's simultaneous in this sense, and I'll give a couple of references. One is Vasudeve Bhagavati. I'll give three references. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janaya Yashuvairagyam Jnanam Chayarahaitukam. As is mentioned also in the same chapter we're reading, as you know well. When one serves Krishna through direct devotional service, especially Shravanam, hearing, then there are concomitant benefits. One of them is vairagya. Naturally, one becomes detached from other things. And an example or a metaphor, analogy given in the Bhagavatam also says, Bhakti parishanu bhave viraktir anyata traisa trika ekakala prapadyamanasya yatashna sus tushti pushti shud apayonugasam, which compares the eating process with bhakti. So it says prapadyamanasya, when you're surrendering to Krishna, which means essentially availing yourself to more hearing about him, then there's three things that happen. And that is bhakti. You start to develop a sense of devotion, connection to Krishna. Bhakti parisha anubhava means you see it for yourself. It's very clearly evident to you. And then also virakti. Virakti means you're detached from things that aren't related to Krishna. Just like, let's say you have in your car, you have a CD player, if you have a car that was made before 2008, 10, when they stopped putting CDs, 10? Okay, before 2010, you might have a CD player. You might even have a cassette player. Anyone? I got one. Cassette player and CD player and radio dial. All three in one. Don't get envious. Okay, so all three are in there. I get in the car. Now I have my choice. I've got, I could turn on the radio. I could push the button for the CD that's in there, and it's someone talking about devotional service in Krishna. Or, a number of combinations and permutations. I could use that. So then I don't want to hear the radio. It's not really interesting to me. It could be used in Krishna service possibly, but I'm just not attracted. I'd rather hear the other thing. This is a virakti. You have the choice, but you have no attachment to the lower thing. And you only get interested in things that are substantial. Like, is this good for me or not? Is it actually connected to Krishna? Just like a person who's developing wealth. He or she is astute at not wasting money. What's the interest rate on that? Oh, I don't want that one. I want this one. It's a higher interest rate. And I don't want to lose money on that because it's a ripoff. And so they're always calculating and they're always going for, how to make more money. So a devotee is interested like that. How do I increase my bhakti? And they're no longer interested in getting ripped off by the material energy. It's a hoax. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a royal Ponzi scheme going on. And so why would I put my money in a Ponzi scheme? It's just gonna get taken. So then Kavi Yogendra compares this to eating. You know that when you eat food, you naturally feel satisfied, right? How do you know that? I always wonder at that. I'm eating, it's like, how do I know I'm feeling satisfied? It's like, are you hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry. How do you know? I just know. So similarly, when you do bhakti, or when you eat, you know when you're getting satisfied. So when you do bhakti, you know you're getting satisfied also. And tushti, pushti, nourishment. It means you're nourished when you eat food. So you feel strong. So in devotional service, let's say you're a little unsure about your life. Maybe you're even a little depressed. Possible? Especially this time of year. It's kind of dark, right? A little cold for you all? Anyone from South India doesn't like it here? Okay, so Yeah, a little cold and dark, and God, what do I do? This, that, taxes are higher than I thought. And so then you pick up your bead bag and you start chanting Hare Krishna at 1 a.m, kids that can't sleep. And then all of a sudden you start feeling like, hey, actually I'm okay. Everything's okay. You get a natural sense that it's like a perspective. Everything comes rushing into your mental system and you're like, how's that happening? Well, how's it happening when you eat food? It just does. So when you chant Hare Krishna, when you hear about Krishna, you feel satisfied. You feel nourished. And also, your hunger goes away when you eat food. You don't want any more. So similarly, your hunger for material things goes away. It doesn't apply to hunger for spiritual things. You want more. You become greedy for it. More hunger. It's never satiated, which is a nice thing. Because just imagine if you could just keep eating. You come to the dessert and you have, what do you like for dessert? Come on, work with me, people. What? Cheesecake? What? What did she say? Sandesh. Yeah, we could eat that all day. I mean, I used to be able to. But, and then it's like at a certain point you go, I don't want any more. But imagine you just keep eating it and you never get full. So you could keep hearing about Krishna and it's like, that's not enough. I want to hear some more. I want to hear some more. So that creates a kind of absorption where you just don't have time for for material stuff anymore. This is what it means. Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana paripa. I'm busy. Maya comes over and says, okay, let's do this and that. It's like, I would, but I'm really busy. Got to go. See you later. Bye. You're just out of here. You're in the material world, but you don't have time for it anymore because you're ananyas chintaya, your chintya, your consciousness is really absorbed in this bhakti thing. And you just can't give it up. And you want more of it all the time, so you don't have time anymore for spiritual life. This is virakti. So both are happening at the same time. And you can see the material world, you know what's going on. I saw the guy cooking hot dogs with onions on the corner, and I know what he was doing, but I wasn't going to have any. Not in this life or the next, or forevermore, because I already have sandesh. I mean, why would I have a hot dog? The whole idea is repulsive. So for those who have tasted bhakti, the whole idea of the material world it's pointless, actually. There's nothing in it for me. Not only that, it's kind of repulsive. You get into the lower modes of nature, and even Krishna says, Jaganya guna vrittista. Now you want to hear about the abominable modes, the mode of ignorance. It's really dark and ugly down there. Like, don't go there. Head up and come into transcendence. Tamasima jyotirgamai. So I promised you 3. I gave you 2. I said Vasudevi Bhagavati. What else was I thinking, Sundarananda? Huh? Oh yeah, I was thinking of Bhagavad Gita. Vishaya vinivartante nirahara sudehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishva nivartate. So Krishna says, when you give up material things, in the beginning, you might still be attached to them in your mind. Like, I'm not touching it, but I'm still thinking about it. But he says, once you experience a higher taste, then there's no consideration anymore. The lower thing, it's just not even there anymore. Yeah.
So just a short follow-up. So is it that attachment precedes detachment, or they both happen at the same time?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not absolutely stereotype, but the way Krishna describes it in the Bhagavad Gita, Vishaya Vinivartane, says first there's a forced detachment because you're following a rule, but after you get a higher taste, then it's natural. He describes it like that. And he also says in the Bhagavad Gita, Raga dvesha vimuktaistu vishayan indrayaischaran atmavashera vidheatma prasadam arigachati. At first, you follow the regulative principles of freedom, he calls them, and then you'll get prasadam, which means grace, because you open up a little space for the grace to come through. And then, prasadam means mercy, and it also means kind of peace and happiness that you feel. Because you're not just following the senses. They're a little bad masters. It's like, give me this, give me that, give me this, all the time asking for things. And I feel enslaved to them. And after I say, no mas, and you get a better master, then you can just transfer over and you get prasadam, or the mercy of the Lord. Okay, there was a couple more questions. Who was it? Do you have one back there? No. Up here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Oh, online. I can't see from here. Oh, Sringara Rasa. Okay, Sringara Rasa, go ahead, because we want to honor our online audience. And great to see you all there. Thank you very much for joining. Hare Krishna. Chitraleka Saki, are you in New Mayapur? Hare Krishna. Great to see you.
So wonderful to see you. Such a precious moment. Thank you so much.
We're thinking about coming over there sometime. We were pretty close, looking over the English Channel, trying to figure out how far we'd have to swim to get to New Mayapur. But I was talking to some devotees there. I heard you have 40 nice rooms there, if anybody wants to go over there and have a retreat or something, right?
Yes, you're right.
Okay, hopefully we'll see you there. That's my dream. What, I want to go to France? Say yes. Okay, let's go to France. All right, Hare Krishna. Good to see Chitraleka Saki. All right, let's see. Let's hear the question. Sringara Ras, you have a question?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
So my question is that how does hearing progress? Like, what are the characteristics of different kinds of hearing? Someone new in Krishna how do they hear, and how does a pure devotee hear? Like, how does it progress?
That's a really nice question. So this is described, the progression of the various types of hearing and devotees by Kapila Dev in the Bhagavatam. And he talks about how in the beginning, when one's performing devotional service, one may have a separatist mentality and still think that, and still have material motivations. And then one progresses to the sattva gun gradually. Actually, there's the mode of ignorance when one's performing devotional service, but one's critical of other devotees and the way they're doing it. I think I'm doing it better than them. And then there's rajas, where you're doing it, but there's still this idea of some kind of material reward and attachments. Then in the mode of sattva, Mukharvin, you find that section? Oh, that's what you're doing? Sorry. If I could remember how the verse starts for the transcendental part. It's quoted in Ramananda Roy. What? Anyway, we'll get there. So then in the mode of goodness, one's doing devotional service. Madguna shruti matrayana mai sarva guhashaye mano vina mano katir vichit hangam bang. All right, we'll put it up. So then in the mode of goodness, one feels dutiful. But then, as described by Kapila Dev and also by Ramananda Roy, to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you can tell when you're coming into transcendental realm of devotional service. So he gives this verse, Madguna Shruti Matrina Mai Sarva Guhashaye Manogatir Avichina Yata Gangam basom budao. So this verse is saying, Madguna shruti matrena, that, let's look at the word for word, it'll be more helpful. So when you're hearing about Krishna and his qualities, guna, shruti means hearing, and just by doing it a little bit, matrena, mai, towards me, sarva guhashaye, he's residing in everyone's heart. We talked about that this morning. And managati, it really means the mind's going somewhere. It's like running after something, right? The heart's course probably gives this. Avichchina, so this is one of the qualities. It's continuous. So you hear about it a little bit, and then the mind keeps going. It's like, I want more of this. How can I get more? This is a sign that you're actually advancing. And then yata, he gives this analogy. Yata Ganga ambasa, the water of the Ganga ambudao. It's always flowing towards the ocean. And so the mind is like that. When you're hearing transcendentally, you hear it, and then the mind just runs after it. It's flowing towards it, can't stop. Like the Ganga never stops. You can dam it up, but it'll go around, under, whatever. It'll get there. So your mind will become like that. And then the second stanza gives the next qualifications of this transcendental. Lakshanam bhakti yogasya. So lakshana means the qualities of bhakti yoga. Nirgunasya hudaritam. When it's nirgunasya, it's no longer tinged by the modes of nature. Then it has these two qualities, ahaituki avyavahita. So haituki means you don't want anything in return from it. It's just service for service. And avyavahita means it doesn't stop. It's continuous. Ya bhakti purushottame. This is bhakti to Krishna. Purushottame is another name for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Let's look at the words for words. So then it says, Lakshanam, the manifestation, bhakti yogasya, of devotional service, nirgunasya, unadulterated. When it's unadulterated means it doesn't have any mixture of rajas and tamas. It's all shuddha sattva, or purely in goodness. Then he, indeed, adaritam means this is how it shows in your life. Ahaituki, it's causeless, and avyavahita, it's not separated. That is, we're never separated from it. There's never a time when you go like, hey, I'd rather hear the radio now. No, you continuously want bhakti. Ya, bhakti, that devotional service, purushottame, towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's called transcendental. So in the previous verses, it's describing the conditional effects of devotional service. If you look at those really quick, just look at the translations in the previous 4 verses. Not this translation, but the verse, I'm sorry, 9 what? Verse 9 and verse 10. 3:29. Is this the first of the series? It says, the worship of the deities in the temple by a separatist with a motive for material enjoyment, fame, and opulence is devotion in the mode of passion. I think there's one in ignorance too, no? 8. Go to 8. We're going all the way back to 8. Devotional service executed by a person who is envious, proud, violent, and angry, and who is a separatist, is considered to be in the mode of darkness. Not very good. Better get it fixed. Next is the worship of the deities in the temple by a separatist with a motive for material enjoyment, fame, and opulence is devotion in the mode of passion. When a devotee worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offers the results of his activities in order to free himself from the inebrities of fruit of activities, his devotion is in the mode of goodness. And then we come to Madguna Shruti Matrena, which we just went over. So this gives you the progression of the mixtures of devotional service from ignorance all the way up into Shuddha Sattva, or purity. So you can tell if you're hearing and you're highly distracted. Like, let's just say you go to somebody's room and you want to talk about your complaints about some other devotees who don't treat you with enough respect. Possible? Okay, so You start unwinding, and then the person says, by the way, I got an idea. Let's read Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then you go like, you know what? I hear my mom calling me. She wants a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I got to go. Because my mind's so averse to like, no, I want to complain. This is like in the mode of passion and ignorance. Let's just complain for a while. And then it's like, why don't we just hear? It's like, I don't know. That sounds kind of, I don't know. It doesn't sound good. So that's affected by the lower modes of nature. But when it's like you hear somebody's going to hear, like Rajendra Nandan Prabhu, my dear godbrother, just passed away recently. I just remember a few years ago when I came to Mayapur, and we've been writing, he's like, I want to join the yatra this year. And when I saw him, he came up to me and goes, I just want to hear. That was his whole mode in his life, especially the later years. He was so locked in. He's just, I just want to hear. And he'd be so attentive no matter where we were. We'd sit on the bus. We're driving to the, around with all the devotees to the various places. He'd have his books out. We'd be reading, talking. It's all he wanted to do. He was on that stage that I just want to hear. And it doesn't stop. He'd wake up in the morning and start over again. And his mind's attracted to it. He couldn't hear enough. So that's transcendental state of devotional service. Okay, a couple more questions. Yes.
I want to thank you, Guru Maharaj. A realization and a question. When you were talking about this whole point of the detachment, I was remembering the Bhagavad Gita verse where it says that the whole the tree, the banyan tree, is a perverted reflection, and the very fact that it even exists is because of that water, which is actually the desires that we have, and how strongly rooted those subsidiary roots are, and how the whole purpose of life is to cut those roots of material desires. So I was able to relate to that. And also I was connecting your discussion from this morning where you said that, Krishna's name just gives you the liberation, like how Ajamila, just the name. Last night we were reading about the Chand Kazi pastime, he being a Muslim, and he heard so much about the Harinam Sankirtan, and he did not like it. He was all against it and everything. And when he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he actually told him his own stories of what has happened to him, how Narsimhadev came in his own dream, and he then even told to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that you are Lord Narayan himself. And when he said that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so happy. He said that you have already said Hari, you have said Krishna, and now you have said Narayan. And he embraced him, and then I was thinking, wow, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced him, and then he immediately told him that you are, this is the end of your sinful life, and all your past karmas are, gone. And until today, it was said that in Navadvip, because Kazi promised that he would never stop the Harinam Sankirtan and his whole generation. So it was so easy for him, in spite of he being like the opposite party of it. I was thinking, my question really is, while Krishna says it is so easy, just the name gives you, at the same time it is so hard, like, it's the 1 in 1,000, Manushyanam Shasri Shula, 1 in 1,000 can become a pure devotee. So I wanted to understand from you this two extremes where it is easy as well as it is hard, and how do we make it easy for ourselves?
I think it's semantics, because sometimes in English, in modern English, we use easy in a replacement of simple. Simple is a better description. It's very straightforward and simple. It doesn't necessarily mean it's easy. Easy means like, hey, just put it in my mouth, I'll sit here. I don't want to come upstairs and get it. You bring it to me and put it in my mouth. In that sense also, there is a sense of easiness to devotional service. I mean, we have a process through which even while we're integrated with the material world, maybe working, you maybe have a big family, you may have to go on tours with different types of people, but you can still become Krishna conscious through that process. And the process is simple because it's one thing. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing and chanting. I mean, it's very simple in that way. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, apply yourself strictly to the simple path. And as far as the results go, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur talks about it in the his sixth canto commentary on Ajamil, and he says that when you plant a tree, you have to wait for the fruit. And it takes gardeners know this, it takes different times for different kinds of fruits to come out. And also, even in the same species of trees, there's some of them take longer to give the fruit than others. And we just wait patiently for that to come. But those who do come in contact with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, no matter what their desires are, Kaviraj Goswami said, they will be fulfilled by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And if you have the slightest inkling for pure devotional service, Krishna is very expert at making sure that you get to that destination. And if you have some association with the devotees and you just get a little whiff of that, sense that maybe this is a good idea, then you're really on the path, and it's just a matter of time before you come to that position. And some people, they've been practicing for a long time in previous lives, and therefore when they come to this path of devotional service, then they very quickly take to it. Yesham tonta katam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva mohanir mukta bhajanti mam dhridavrta. Some people already at that level. But we don't need to compare ourselves to anybody else. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sway adhikari, not Bhagavad Gita, it's the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sway adhikariya nishta saguna parikirtita. Vipariyos dosha syad. That it's a good quality if you understand and accept your position where you are now and just act according to your adhikari, what you're qualified for. And in some ways, it's just as good as anybody else if you're sincere. Because birds fly in the sky as high as they're able, but the sky is unlimited. So how are you going to compare accurately? I mean, we do compare. There were Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttam, and we do appreciate those who are more purified and refined, but anybody on the path to devotional service, Krishna says, Apichet Sudaracharo Bhajate Mamananyam. They're all good, because they're going the same place. Yes, Dhanavari?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you so much. I have a question about hearing. That if we want to progress more in bhakti, and is hearing and chanting is the only essential, or can we? Do we need other services in order to progress more high in? Like other services are necessary, or only hearing and chanting is the only enough?
Well, this is something that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discusses with Sanatana Goswami. He mentions 64 limbs, processes of devotional service. And then he said, okay, here's 5. These 5 are so potent that even if you have a little connection or attachment to them, even if you don't have complete faith in them, you'll still attain complete success. Then he said, okay, out of these 5, there's 1. It's absolutely essential. And we chant that verse. How does it start? Parikshita bhava Vaisesika evayam. That verse is all about, obviously I haven't memorized it, but it's all about how, Hanuman, you just did service. Parikshit, he just listened. What? Shri Vishnur Shravanad Vaisesika vayam. You guys are good. Vaidane Avirabhut Krishna Para. So each one of the particular people who have attained success from one type of bhakti, service or prayers, like Akrura offered prayers, that was his perfection, attained perfection. So devotional service, all perfect, any of them, any one of them is powerful enough. But we say that hearing and chanting are the mainstay, because that enacts the process within the heart of dropping the anarthas by Krishna's grace and coming into full realization. And they're all accompanied by hearing anyway. Okay, so we have one last question, and then we're going to have a Guru Puja, then a grain ceremony.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I was just remembering that when you said that the taste, when we were in college, we used to have a lot of nice Udupi. Udupi cooks are supposed to be very good cooks. So we had some very nice food that we had. But after some of us became Krishna conscious, I used to enjoy the biryani that they made with garlic when I was in college. And after we started chanting, the smell of it used to make me feel nauseated. So we had to look for, and I used to think that, how come, I know I just started chanting, how can this can happen? But as you were saying that it is not me, or it is not like my friends who also felt the same, that it's just that the higher taste will slowly take the lower taste out. That was my comment. My question is, you were just mentioning about hearing. Since I'm already working on my next year goals, I was just looking at it. Last year I had written that every single day I have to hear. So I had been hearing very regularly, maybe for 6 months, 8 months, I don't remember. I didn't even realize that I dropped it at some point. And I was just thinking that, as you said, I had really become addicted to hearing it every day while cooking, cleaning. But I don't know what to do to keep sure that I didn't even realize till I went back to look at my notes, what I did last year, that I didn't hear in between. It just totally vanished and I didn't even realize that. How do we keep up that regular every single...
You should start your own internet social media program. Hearing with Sukeshwari. And you show up every day. Look at Kesha Bardimar. She has this program. He has to show up every day because it's his program. It's called Daily Reading of Srila Prabhupada's Books. And, you know, he has his time and everyone's there. And it's a thing. So you have to make it a thing. If you have your thing, then you're going to show up for it. You know, I remember when I was really busy living in a house, and then ISV fledgling stage, and they said, do you want to give a class? And I said, absolutely. And the reason I wanted to, I had to drive down to where it was in San Jose, was because I wanted a thing where I had to be there. I had one thing at home where people would come over once a week, but I wanted more things. And as soon as I had my thing, then it turned into a bigger thing. So things work. So find something where you're teaching it to others and you have to be there on a regular basis. Otherwise, if you're by yourself, you go like, well, maybe I got this other thing to do right now. But make that a very apparent thing where you're teaching it and then show up for it every single day. That's one thing, to do a thing. Okay, so we discussed a little bit. We had a few bhajans and it veered off a little bit because electricity went out temporarily. And now we have a chance for some kirtan, starting with the Guru Puja. So we're going to put away the seats and roll up this carpet, and then we'll gather in front of Srila Prabhupada and do Guru Puja. Gaur Premanande Haribo, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Boo. Twabhivandane kapira bhur Krishna Teresham Sada. Hare Krishna.
वो वाला जो हाँ वही
कई हाथ से वो टेंपल अंदर में बैठ के रखा मम्मा जी मम्मा किचन में can I leave that and I can go there kids are not allowed I said no it's allowed I said do you know temple commanded who is he another devotee see he is not here the camera में दिख रहा है आप आए ना मतलब the view sunset बैठ इसको फोटो दिखी आपका नाम ये सर्विस में
Okay, so this is a special ceremony. It's a puja means a worship, and guru means a spiritual leader, teacher. And so, in the tradition of Vaishnavism, it's important to honor, worship the teacher, because that's how we get the knowledge. It flows down to us. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says this, Tadvidi pranipatena prashnena sevaya, uparakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. If you want knowledge, you go to the advanced person and you offer service and you inquire submissively and be very humble. And then that knowledge will flow out from the heart of that person. And so the main teacher for this branch of Bhakti Yoga, Vaishnavism, is Srila Prabhupada. He's the founder Acharya. The founder means he started this organization, which is a big branch, or small, depending on how you look at it, of of the big Chaitanya tree. And also Acharya, he's the one who sets the example and the standards for how others should follow. So once a day in all the ISKCON temples, ISKCON means International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and there are thousands of temples around the world, there's a daily puja, or offering of our respect, gratitude, and worship, honoring the teacher, the founder Acharya. So it's in a couple different languages. This is Sanskrit, and then we sing it in Bengali. But we're going to say the translation first. So don't worry about doing the Sanskrit or the Bengali if you're not accustomed to those, but it's very beautiful language. So you can just listen to the meter of it and you'll feel satisfied. Shall we? Yes. Okay, here we go. Namashreshtam manamapi shachiputramatra sarupam shirupam tasyagrajam urupanim maturin goshtavatim Radha kundam girivaramoho radhika madhavasham Prapto yasya pratita kripaya shridarum tandatosmi Hey Guru Gyanadadina Bandho Swanandadatta Karunaika Sindho Vrindavana Sinahita Avatar Prasida Radha Pranaya Prachara Hey Dina Bandho Karunaika Sindho Kuru Prasadam Mai Mandamudhe Laksha Parade Bahupapa Gade Tatpada Padme Stumbatishta Krishna. I bow down to the beautiful lotus feet of my spiritual master, by whose causeless mercy I have obtained the supreme holy name, the divine mantra, the service of the son of Shachimata, the association of Srila Swarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami and his older brother Sanatana Goswami, the supreme abode of Mathura, the blissful abode of Vrindavan, the divine Radhakunda and Govardhan Hill, and the desire within my heart for loving service of Sri Radhika. This prayer requires a little context. I won't go into the whole thing, but I'll just say that it was written by one of the very advanced the Vaishnavas hundreds of years ago. And he's expressing gratitude to his guru for all that, and he's naming various people that come along with it, with the various holy places, like when it says the divine Radhakunda, that's a place of pilgrimage. Govardhan Hill, similarly. So it's offering effusive gratitude for all these different people and places that he's received just through meeting his spiritual master. Next. O spiritual master, O giver of divine wisdom, O friend of the fallen, you're the giver of your own bliss, and you are the only ocean of mercy. Although dwelling in Vrindavan, you have descended for the welfare of fallen souls like myself, and you are preaching the divine love of Radha for Krishna. Please be kind upon me. O friend of the lowly, O Gurudev, you are the only ocean of mercy. I am a doleful and have committed hundreds of thousands of offenses. I have fallen into a dense myriad of sins. Therefore grace me with your mercy so that my mind may be fixed on your lotus feet and on Sri Krishna. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. Our only wish is to have our consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens our darkened eyes and fills our hearts with transcendental knowledge. He is our Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of the poor. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us a shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoyte. Guru mukha padma bhakya chitete koriya oika. Guru mukha padma bhakya chitete koriya oika. Sri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utamagate. Jai Prasade Kure Sarva. Jai Prasade Pure Sarva. Janme janme Prabhu se. Shakudan dilo se. Janme janme Prabhu se. Divya Gyan Rere Pokashita. Divya Gyan Rere Pokashita. Prema Pakita Hete Abhijadina Sajate. Prema Pakita Hete Abhijadina Sajate. Tere Jai Jahara Charita. Tere Jai Jahara Charita. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Agama Janara Bandhu. Lokanath Kera Divana. Nagokera Jivana Ha ha Prabhu Gola Goya Deya Mure Pada Shaya Prabhu Gola Goya Deya Mure Pada Shaya Ede Jashti Shikti Rubana Ede Jashti Shikti Rubana Ha ha Prabhu Goya Deya Mure Pada Shaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschachari Shakarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Premanande, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki, Shri Harinam Mahamantra Ki, Shri Harinam Prabhu Ki, Gaur Premanande, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajagacharya Shtotarashri Shiman Abhay Charanada Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Sai Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajagacharya Shtotarashri Shiman Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Garadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gokapinath Shyamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Jamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Sambheda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Haribol. Sounds like a major motion picture about to start. Hare Krishna. Now we'll be having a sacred grain ceremony. Hare Krishna, ending in G sharp. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sorry, Jyoti. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. So today we have a sacred grain ceremony. This is the first grains that Keshavi will be taking today. And throughout the system, the Pancharatric system, there's a way to remember Krishna at every major juncture of life. So Keshavi, today, we've noticed that your teeth are coming in. That's nature's way of saying it's time for you to have grains. Haribo. So we don't just start chewing on grains all of a sudden. When we're in Krishna's protection in the Pancharatric system. Rather, we take the opportunity to remember Krishna and to mark this point by all coming together today, Keshavi, on your behalf, actually, to celebrate the first time that you'll be taking Mahaprasadam grains, which is a far cry from regular grains, if you see what I'm saying. And not only that, we're going to chant one chapter of Bhagavad Gita, if you can appreciate that. I think she can. And within that chapter, we have the verse, Aham Vaishva Naro Bhutva. And this means that as Krishna is speaking himself, as the Supreme Person, he's also the digestive force. He's there personally digesting for us. So we remember Krishna in that case. Not only that, Bhagavad Gita is so auspicious. At a ceremony like this, hearing one chapter, chanting it together brings eternal benefit. Okay? Say yes. Okay. Haribo. Hare Krishna. Now we'll do the Bhagavad Gita. You just listen. Next time you chant. Shri Bhagavana Vacha Urdva Mulamada Shakam Ashvatam Prahuravyayam. Could we have the 15th chapter, please? Let's start over so everyone can be on the same page. Sanskrit, please. Sri Bhagavanu Vacha. We're getting there. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Urdhva Madah Shakam Ashvatam Prahur Avyayam Jandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Veda Vid Adashchordvam Prashritastasya Shaka Guna Pravrada Vishaya Pravala Adashchamulan Anusantatani Karmanubandini Manushaloke Narupamasyeha Tatopalabhyate Nanto Nacharir Nacha Sampratishta Ashvatamenam Suvaruda Mulam Asanga Shastrena Dridhena Chitva Tatak Padam Tat Parimargitavyam Yasmin Gatana Nivartanti Puya Tameva Chadyam Purusham Prapadye Yata Pravritti Prashita Purani Nirmana Moha Jita Sangha Dosha Adhyatma Nitya Vinivritta Kama Tanverva Mukta Sukha Dukha Samja Gachancha Mura Paramavyayantat Natad Vasayate Shruyo Nashashanko Napavakaha Yadgatva Nanivartante Tadama Paramamama Mamayavamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha Manakshastan Indriyani Prakriti-stani karshati Shariram yadavapnoti Yachapyukramatishvaraha Grihit vaitani samyati Vayuragandhani vashayad Shotram chakshushparshanam cha Rasanam granam eva cha Atishtayam manaschayam Vishayanupasevate Ukramantam stitam vapi Unjanam vagunanvitam Vimudhanana pashyanti jnana chakshusha Yatanto yoginaschainam Pashyantyatmanyavastitam Yatanto pyakritatmano Nainam pashyantya chetasaha Yadaditya gatam tejo Jagad basayate kilam Yachchandramasi yachjagno Tat tejo vidimamakam Gam avishya chabutani Darayam yaham ochasa Pushnami chausadi sarva Somo bhutva rasatmakaham Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Deham Ashrita Pranapana Samayukta Pachanyanam Chaturvidam Sarvasya Chaham Hridisha Nivishto Mataksmitir Gyanam Apohanam Cha Vedaishcha Sarva Ahameva Vedya Ganta Kriveda Vedeva Chaham Dravima Purusha Loke Shara Shakshara Eva Cha Shara Sarvani Bhutani Kutasto Shara Uchate Utama Purushastvanya Paramatme Tyudarita Yo Lokatrayam Avishya Pipartavyaya Ishvara Yasmat Sharamatito Ham Akshara Pichotama Atosmi Loke Vedecha Pratita Purushottama Yo Mamevam Asambudo Janati Purushottamam Susarva Vid Bhajatimam Sarva Bhavena Bharata Iti Kuyatamam Shastram Idam Uktam Mayanaka Etad Budva Buddhiman Syat Krita Kritasya Bharata Om Tat Sad Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Purushottam Yoga Nama Panchadashodhyayaha Hari Om. Om Keshavaya Namaha. Om Narayanaya Namaha. Om Madhavaya Namaha. So now we'll have a little kirtan, and we'll give first grains to Keshavi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, slide me that sweet rice. Hare, you hold it. Shana Hare, give me the cloth also. That one.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.
Now you do. Hold that. Hare Rama. She's good. Good.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Drinking it.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Lots more. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Did everybody offer who was going to? Shraddha here? Come on. Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Go Premanande. So far we can see that Keshavi has a strong desire for devotional service from the way you drink the sweet rice. This is a very good indication. Based on the verse from Rupa Goswami, Bhakti ras bhavito mati kriyatam yadi kritopi labhyate tatalolyam api mulyam ekalam janmakoti sukritirna labhyate. That you have to be very greedy for devotional service. You should drink it like Keshavi drinks sweet rice. This is the example of how to do devotional service. And now, for the next part of our program, which will divine the propensities, the ways that you'll be fully engaged in devotional service, we're going to put before you, Keshavi, on this right-hand side you have Srimad Bhagavatam, a left-hand side, sparkly jewels, and a huge stack of cash. Missing a few credit cards. Some Kshatriya families put weapons, but we've held back on that. So now, your job, should you decide to accept it, Keshavi, is to go before these items and choose which one you're most attracted to. It's a visceral kind of engagement. Don't think, just grab. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. That's something. That was definitely a move. Not the usual grab. She put her whole head on the platter of wealth cash, which means that she'll be filled up to the top with wealth. Let's see what else. Any other indication? Just open the Bhagavatam a little bit. Keshavi, here we have 4th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, Prithu Maharaj, culturing the earth. On the right, you have the planetary systems described. Haribo! So, this means that she'll cry in separation from Krishna, from reading Bhagavatam. She especially was attracted to the 4th canto, which means that she'll be an administrator, and because of the way she rolled over and put her head on the tray of wealth, it means that she'll attract a lot of donations to ISKCON of Silicon Valley. Haribo. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadev, if you so desire, please empower and bless Keshavi, that she may always keep your holy names on her lips, your form in her mind, and your devotional service and love for you within her heart. May she be a pleasure to all the Vaishnavas. May she be empowered to spread the Krishna conscious movement all over the world. May she be a pleasure to her parents and have friends all over the world. Thank you very much for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone who agrees with this prayer in part or in whole, please say Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanande Haribo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaur Premanande, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo, Haribo. I declare this first grain ceremony for Keshavi in the presence of all the devotees and the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be a complete success. Vanchakalptarishya kripasindhamevacha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha nantakoti vaishnaviniki jai. Now we're going to have, wow, it's 10:20. We have, are there announcements for this morning? Yes?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes. Oh, Malini, aloha.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Please
Hare
accept my
Krishna.
humble obeisances. On Vish Prabhupada.
Jai. Please go ahead.
Prabhu, today we have some teams going to Santa Cruz. We have some teams going to Indian stores. And we have one team which will go door to door if they like. We have the cookies packed. We have the books ready.
Floor cloth. Floor cloth.
Hare Krishna.
I can't read it.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, go ahead. I can concentrate now.
Okay. Prabhu, we have teams going out door to door in distributing the cookies packets with the Bhagavad Gita hardbounds hanging on the doors. Raseshwari is going. And then we have one team going to Santa Cruz and one team going to Indian stores. And we have those 3,000 cookies packed. So if anybody would like to take cookies, please contact Tarun Prabhu, and he will arrange for all the material for the packing as well as the cookies and the books and everything.
Malini, how many books must we distribute in the next couple of weeks?
Prabhu, we have to distribute at least 13,000 Bhagavad Gitas. And we sent 1,000 Bhagavad Gitas to Sacramento devotees. They took 1,000 and they will pack them. And they already sent a picture. They packed all of them and they're going to distribute them. And we are going to distribute at least 3,000 Bhagavad Gitas on the day of Christmas. We will hang it on the doors. And rest we have to distribute in Christmas in the Park and other places and Motel Gita. So we have about 12 to 13,000 more Bhagavad Gitas to go.
Does it look like it's well proportioned as far as when we're going to do them and how many at each event?
Yes, Prabhu, so far. But we still need devotees to help distribute as many as possible. We have some ways to go. So anything that you can do to distribute, take cases or distribute your friends, go door to door, Santa Cruz, any place they can.
Is
will help a
everyone
lot.
into it? Everyone wants to distribute 17,000 books? 13,000? Where do we get the books? Just out, they'll be handed to us on the way out?
Yes, Prabhu. Tarun Prabhu can arrange everything. And so that Venudari Prabhu can also arrange. So if anybody needs, please let them know, and then they will give everything
I
you
definitely need. I want books. Thank you very much, Malini.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You're in Mayapur, right?
Yes, Prabhu, it looks like Mayapur.
Is it nice?
Yes, Prabhu, the weather is really nice here. And we saw the full moon in the morning today in the ocean when we were chanting, so it was
Can
really
you give
nice.
us one verse about the Lord Chaitanya arising from the ocean of Sachimata's womb? Who knows the verse? Shiradhaya. No, that's before that. The one just before that.
Srivas Prabhu is here.
There he is. Come on, Panditji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Please
Krishna.
accept my humble obeisance, always, Prabhupada. Radhaya pranaya mahima kidrisho vavanayaiva swadyo yenadbhutamadiriva kidrisho vamadiya saukyam chasya madbhavati kidrisho vetilobad tadbhavagya savajani sachigarva sindhu parindu. Thank you.
Thank you for checking in, both of you. Made our day.
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare.
Okay, and then now, other announcement. Bhakti community, are you ready? Here you go.
Hare Krishna. I'll make quick announcements today. Just reminding everybody, especially the book distributors, make sure that whenever you give books, please also share information about Bhakti community. We are really doing a lot of programs for our newcomers and teaching them Krishna consciousness in a very simplified way. I want to invite two of our Bhakti community participants. One of them is Irene, and she...
That's Irene? I couldn't tell with a mask on. Hey, Irene. Good to see you. Haribo.
Irene is a very regular attendant of Bhakti community since the pandemic started. Recently, she has a job which is very demanding, and she has to work over the weekends. So she is requesting all devotees to pray for her that her job situation will get stable and she can focus more on...
Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmana Shringadev. If you so desire, please give our dear Irene a much easier job for at least twice the salary. Thank you for considering our request. Very well.
I also want to share that whenever Irene comes on a call, the whole call is on fire. As soon as she comes, she has a fan club over there. So she's very much loved by all the devotees and participants of Bhakti community. And one more thanks to Tori, who actually came today just for Irene. So Tori wanted to give some company to Irene, and Tori lives 3 hours away from this place.
Wow.
She came to the Japa circle. So she traveled halfway. She stayed somewhere else midway overnight so that she can be here on time for the Japa circle. So thank you, Tori. And a special thanks to our Sankirtan warriors, Kautukarnava Prabhu and Krishna Prabhu. They have been the main people. They are like, the main people who come to Bhakti community regularly, and they bring a lot of new participants, including the two who are here. And thank you so much for your dedicated service, and not just bringing the participants. They also sit in the classes with them. They do follow-ups after the classes. They understand, they share their realizations. So excellent, stellar work from both of them, and they are very inspirational. Thank you, both of you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
and Kishori's birthday, and their parents have cooked the feast for
Name it. You. Yeah.
Today is the birthday of Kunji and Kishori, and their mothers have cooked the feast today, and they request all of your blessings for Kunji and Kishori.
Now we say one. Kunji going to speak?
Today is the day when I am 4 years old, and I also gave everyone a gift, and I also gave my teachers a gift. I'm also 4, and I also know how to do jumping jacks. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Kunji. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripasindubhya evacha patitam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. We're going to say a prayer before we take prasadam. Prasadam is spiritual food offered to Krishna, and it brings us to the transcendental consciousness. It's cooked with love and devotion and offered to Krishna. And the prayer is written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, where he says that the tongue is very difficult to control out of all the senses. But if you take prasadam, then you can control the tongue. And therefore, he's praising Lord Krishna for being so kind, for giving us Krishna prasadam, for the topmost yoga system of honoring prasadam. Hare Krishna. Sharirat vijajao jotendriya tahika jive pele vishaya shakare dharma dedi boyati loba moise durmati Take deta katita samsare Krishna bodha doyamboy Gori bare jiva jai Japrashadana dilobai Shayanamrita pao Radha Krishna Gunagao Preme Dako Shri Chaitanya Lita Preme Dako Shri Chaitanya Lita Namapare Govinde Namapare Vaishnave Satpunya Gatanga Jan Vishwasana Jayate Sare Savadvitanam Hanirasyo Pujayate Utsanate Kasoyashu Vimpaya Patishe Traya Pavika Satyanga Vasalamkara Charchitaha Uchista Bhojino Dasya Tavamayam Jaimahi Bhagavat Shri Mahaprasad Ki Sukeshwari, are you here? Nitai Gaura Hari Bo Hari Haribo, Kaibo, Haribo. Please come take prasadam. Hare Krishna.